been from closed session into regular session. If you'll stand with me, and Councilman Heyman is going to.
It's not live.
He just said they were.
I keep bringing it up.
Yeah, that's that delay though, but we're,
So are we open?
yes.
All right. Councilman Heyman?
Face flag.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. Lord, I ask you to be with us, this council, this city, this state, and our nation as we face so many things that seem to stand in our way, and we seem to forget sometimes that they are us. We all are us, and we ask you to bless us all, and remember that we stand here to do the work we were elected to do, that we understand we have a job that others may wish for in November, but you know what, Lord? We've got the job to do now, and so we thank you for the peace and the fulfillment of doing your work. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
The next item is the city attorney's report.
Sure. Madam Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
The city council met in closed session with city attorney for two items. One was a performance evaluation of the city attorney. The other was conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation. Madam Mayor, there is no reportable action on either item, and that concludes the report.
Thank you, sir. The next item is public comment on items not on the agenda. On items not on the agenda and do not already and made. Oh Lord, let me start over. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council may not take action on any item that does not appear on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name. Are there any speakers who would like to address us under public comment? I hear a phone call. Speaker, please identify yourself and make your comments. Speaker?
Yes, I'm trying to mute my TV. Name is Richard Wagner, 408 South Lincoln. I've got a few different comments. First of all, I'd like to thank all our first responders, and especially our Ridgecrest Police Department, for their duties and doing it for us. You know, in society, it's not always very good people. I appreciate their police, and I just want to say that I definitely appreciate you guys. Thank you much. The other item, and the main reason I'm calling, is I run quite a bit in the town, and I use the bike path, and I don't know who's responsible for the bike path maintenance, whether it's streets or Parks and Recs, or neither. But the section between China Lake Boulevard and Gateway, especially right there where Sunland goes through, the weeds are so tall that they're actually above my head right there at Sun. So when vehicles turn in or they're going down the street, they really don't see the pedestrians until they're right on the street. So I don't know who's responsible for taking care of that. And then finally, I know we had an ordinance, several concerning posting signs, such as yard sale signs. And I spent the last hour trying to find it, and maybe I'm allowed to use the site.
Speaker, can you put your face to the phone more fully? As you turn your face, I think that's what we're missing out on it.
Yes.
Oh, it is. I'm sorry. It's my phone.
Thank you.
I'm doing the best I can.
What was the ordinance that you said you were looking for?
The posting of signs, such as yard sale signs.
Oh, okay.
I spent about an hour trying to find it, and the main question was, does the ordinance extend to the political signs that are being posted as well?
They are separate.
Okay, and that's all I had. Thank you all very much.
Mr. Wagner, hold on a second. That bike path location, what was the intersection on that again?
It's the main issue is right there on Sunland, but it's the whole section between Gateway and China Lake Boulevard. The weeds are 4 to 6 foot tall.
Mr. Wagner, Ms. Charlon said she would
I
take
was
your
just-
questions for the political
I
sign.
was just going to ask her. Thank you. Go ahead.
Mr. Wagner, if you would like, this is the city clerk, if you would like to email me or contact me directly, I can guide you to where you're looking for in the ordinance.
Okay, thank you much, Ms. Charlotte.
Okay, is that all, sir?
That is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Okay, is there another caller? I think I heard a phone call. Caller, please identify yourself and state your comments or questions.
Yes, my name is Mike Neal, and if anybody hasn't had enough conversation about the COVID-19 situation, I guess you're going to get a little more tonight. Here we are yet again with a city council meeting, council members and staff, and no public in the building. Well, I have to wonder how long it is we're still going to keep doing this. You need to note that there was a semi-impromptu march for freedom last night. The police department saw this. They're aware of it. When you see citizens get out, start marching up and down the street, protesting things, you ought to pay attention. The right to assemble is very important, and it tells you what people think. And I'll tell you this, people in this town are sick of the mask, and the people like myself and actually many others now are sick of being locked out of public meetings. If you can't figure out how to do it in council chambers, you need to get into Kerr-McGee where there's a lot of room, spread everybody out, and open that building up. It's time to quit being little sheep, doing everything Governor Newsom up in Sacramento, liberal la-la land, says to us and declares to us, without even worrying about what the law is, and let the people get back and get involved. If you want to do this, I'm afraid you're going to start gaining a lot more distrust for yourselves. And with the water situation, you definitely do not need more distrust than you've already got. So let's see the next meeting be a public meeting where people can come in and look you eye to eye.
Is that all, sir?
That's it.
Thank you. Caller, please identify yourself and state your question or comment.
Yeah, hi, this is Dave Matthews. Sorry, I just got up from a nap. Unfortunately, I had to take. I didn't want to, so I'm not as prepared here. But I would second what Mr. Neal just had to say. And I was noticing that on tonight's agenda there is not an item which I thought was going to be carried over from the last one. And that was because Councilwoman Stevens was ill last time. And I think you know the item I'm talking about. I don't remember exactly what it was titled, but it had to do with the groundwater item or guidance. And I don't know if you can discuss
Sir,
that.
that is on the agenda.
Yeah, we're going to
Well, okay, but it doesn't
Thank you.
say, it's not titled the same, so that's why it's confusing.
yes.
But
Thank you.
I also noticed that for one time, you're having a presentation on, I think, Constitution Week, which is probably going to be presented or involved with the Daughters of the American Revolution. And for once, I get a chance to tell them how much I appreciate what they do before they leave the building. And I would just encourage them to be more open, be more widespread in getting people involved in actually reading and studying the Constitution. I think, okay, the other thing I was wanting to talk about, I think is going to be on the agenda, so I'll wait till then. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment? It does not appear there's anybody calling in for public comment. I'll give you a couple of more seconds. Okay, then let's go to council announcements. Council, anybody have anything they'd like to announce?
I do. So as Ms. Neal mentioned, there was a march yesterday. One individual messaged me. They plan on having a March for Freedom every Friday at 6 p.m. Meet at Freedom Park and bring flags. So just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, any others? Okay, the next item is the presentation, the proclamation. Mr. Maurer, would you take that, please?
Yes, ma'am. Proclamation of the City of Ridgecrest, California, Constitution Week 2020. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law, and whereas September 17th, 2020 marks the 233rd anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorial anniversary and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designated September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week, now therefore be it proclaimed, we, the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest in the State of California, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals that the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by diligently protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering the lost rights may never be regained. Proclaimed the 16th day of September 2020 by the Mayor and the 4 City Council members.
Thank you, sir. We certainly wholeheartedly endorse that.
And hope our governor will observe the Constitution a little bit better.
Okay, the next item is the consent calendar. Item number 1, proposed action to approve draft minutes of the City of Ridgecrest City Council Successor Redevelopment Agency Financing Authority Housing Authority regular meeting dated September 2nd, 2020. The third item is proposed action to approve a city attorney retainer agreement between all of our, I'm going to just say it, all of our city attorneys and the City of Ridgecrest, and proposed a resolution to set up an appeal to the City Council fee in regards to temporary employee housing permits. Is there any council member who'd like to pull any of these items?
Number 3.
Number what?
3.
3. Is there anybody else? Okay, is there public who wishes to pull any of those items? I don't see any. Oh, I do. Council, public?
Well, yeah, but I was going to ask pull number 3, but that's already been done.
Okay, thank you. All right, then, motion to approve items 2 and 4.
So moved.
Oh, someone else is calling.
Oh,
I see a green and a,
then why do we have 2 different lights?
so what does that mean, Gary? So there's nobody?
There is. Hang on.
Okay, go ahead. Public?
Oh, hold on.
Technical difficulties this evening.
Stop.
Public, did you have an item in which pulled?
Yes, ma'am.
Which one is it?
Number 2, the one about the lawyer.
Oh, number 3.
You mean number 3? That's the one that's already been pulled.
Oh, number 2 has been
Number
pulled?
3. Number 3, Dave.
Oh, is that Is that the lawyer thing?
That is number 3, and that's been pulled.
Okay. Do I make my comment
Well,
now?
let's finish this part of this, and if you want to make your comments, we'll do that. A motion to approve then items 2 and 4.
So moved.
Second.
Please vote. I'm going to need to do roll call. Mayor Breeden. Oh,
Aye. Oh, we up now?
you got it up there. Let's go ahead and vote.
Okay.
5 ayes, motion carries for consent items 2 and 4.
Okay, a number of you asked to have number 3 pulled. Lindsay, you were a council member who asked. Would you state your concern?
Yes, I have concerns given the COVID unknowns that we've spoken of multiple times and our budget impacts that we don't know. It seems concerning to me that we would have such a significant increase brought up at this time for our lawyers, and both in the retainer, and then we weren't able to find out what the hourly increase was going to be, but it's increasing somewhat. And just reviewing the dollars that we've spent in the past couple of years for the lawyers, I have concerns. And I also, what's included in the retainer, some of that issue concerns me. And I also called Tehachapi to find out what they pay for their attorney. And they pay $145 an hour. So seeing that number and talking with them, that also concerned me as well. So I just want to make sure, I feel like what happens is we just kind of think that we should stay because we're comfortable, we've known them for a long time, but I just also think we need to be doing our due diligence and making sure we check around and price and actually have that data for our public, and not just because the lawyers present it, accept it. So those were some of my concerns. I have concerns over, because I know the GSA has taken up a lot of time of our attorneys. That's not part of our retainer. That's charged hourly. I know public acts requests take up a lot of time. That's not in the retainer. And it's just, I would like to know if we can maybe look at, since we're increasing substantially our monthly amount from $9,500 to $11,000, if there's not some room to put things into our retainer, because we have to kind of monitor our spending, especially when we don't know what COVID is going to do to our budget.
Okay. All right. Let's take the rest of the public comments, and that way we can try to answer them all at the same time. Dave, are you still on? Dave?
No, he's going to call. He's shaking his head no.
Okay, is there anybody on for public comment on this particular item? There is now. Caller, please identify yourself and state your comments or concerns. Caller?
Sorry, I was on mute here. I'm trying to still figure this out. My name's Mike Neal, and I have several comments. I would just like to segue off of Ms. Stevens' comments about Tehachapi's attorney being $145 an hour. Golly gee, why don't we go out and look around and see if we might find a better deal for the citizens instead of this, what I think is just outright silliness. This will stay with Lemieux and O'Neill for forever and let them come up here and, want to charge $375 an hour and make sure they keep getting more money by putting in this, seen before cost of living adjustment. To be honest, I think that's just ridiculous. And if you guys agree to this, you're just putting us in to get the usual financial stab in the back. We get to pay lots of taxes, and your staff and your consultants and all these people, they get to be paid a whole lot of money. So I'm going to give you a concrete proposal here. we should probably do it this year if that's at all possible, and go out and get bids for the services and evaluate those bids based both on cost and on past performance record. I've been told numerous times that Lemieux and O'Neill doesn't have a real great track record about winning cases. Why would we want to have an attorney that can't win cases for us very often? That doesn't make any sense. And this retainer wanted to bump that up. That's small change, as you all know. The real money is when they get into litigation, and now they want to charge you $375 an hour if they can bump a partner into that. And that's just, for a little town like ours, that's really just obscene. We should not be doing that whatsoever. If they want that much money, we ought to invite them to go find somebody else to pay them that kind of money. We should not be paying that kind of money to a law firm. And, I could go on for a whole lot longer than 5 minutes talking about my poor opinion of Lemieux and O'Neill, especially in the way they basically show that they just want to cover for wrong actions on council members' parts and shield them from public scrutiny. And then when public comes up and wants to say things, they usually get treated very poorly, if not defamed almost to their face on at least one occasion that I was part of. So I'm not too happy with them. I don't know why you guys would be so happy with them that you just say, yeah, give us a cost of living increase thing. We'll approve it, and we'll give you a whole bunch more money, and we'll just make you fat and happy. I think that needs to come to an end tonight. All right? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who'd like to make public comment at this time? Caller, please identify yourself and state your concerns or questions.
Yeah, hi. This is Dave Matthews, kid. I'm not sure what Mr. Neal was saying and what Miss Lindsay said, but when I saw this item, I thought, I don't think we should just automatically renew this, and I'm not sure what the terms are, but I would suggest that indeed we go get some bids. When this was just Lemieux and Lemieux, I don't know who it was way back, I was pretty happy with most of the decisions that they came up with. But recently, I am hearing some advice which to me is just unconstitutional. And we just declared Constitutional Week. And I think it's time that we make our legal staff adhere to the Constitution as well. So go out and get some bids either this time or the next time and really look at some performance levels. I think I heard Mr. Neal say that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
By the way, this I got cut off. I was on hold there before, and after the vote went down, I got cut off. And so I had to redial back in here. I don't even have the picture up in front of me now. This system is not working, so we need to start getting people back in where they could interact real time. And that's it. Goodbye.
Thank you, sir. Is there other public comment? Please call in at this time.
Excuse me, Lindsay, when you call Tehachapi, what is their monthly fee?
They don't do a retainer. They do an hourly fee. And then
There's more information.
there was, sorry, I talked to Corey. So a number of other cities over use the same lawyer. I want to say some of the smaller ones. I can't think of, he listed off like 4 others that use him, but they don't do a retainer. They do an hourly fee of $145. And then he is, he couldn't really explain this clearly, but he's PERS somehow as well, even though he's contracted. Part of it.
That's right.
Yeah, part of it. Part of the fee money goes to his PERS. I don't think it was an additional amount. I think it was part of what they pay him goes,
But they also pay outside counsel too.
right, but we do as well.
I will say, just as an information point, you know, I do keep track of their billing, and I look at their billable hours that are under the retainer, and at times when you divide the retainer by the billable hours, they're as low as $70 an hour. So the items that they're asking for that are special counsel items, we have been paying for the last couple of years because they weren't paying hardly anything at all. And so really what this agreement reflects is about a $1,500 a month increase in their retainer, which is about, 10%. We have hired outside counsel. We've hired people outside counsel as much as $1,200 an hour, $900 an hour.
We hired that Indian attorney up in Sacramento.
Right.
And she was.
So their rates, from my experience of dealing with several different law firms, their rates are probably on the lower end. When you're talking litigation, yeah, you're going to be spending, $300 an hour, and some, if you had some law firms, you'd be paying $600-700 an hour, $1,000 an hour. So their rates are not outrageous to any degree whatsoever. We do the best we can to reduce the special counsel items. I know that one of the items brought to my attention, the Public Record Act request, I think Rika can say how many hours we put on those voluminous requests, and some of them are sensitive in nature where we have to have a law firm review it, and that just takes hours. And if you got an attorney looking at that for 10, 15 hours a month, that eats away at your retainer. So that is a special item after a certain period of time. So I don't think it's the money so much. I mean, you look at some of the costs we have. Some of these litigation matters that we have, once we hit our insurance rate of $100,000, we get reimbursed. So if the litigation costs were $300,000-400,000, we may get back $200,000-300,000 of that amount because we're only responsible for the first $100,000.
I have a quick question. So we have a retainer agreement currently that's in existence. So if we weren't to approve this one tonight, would we still be operating under the old one?
Correct. The only difference this makes really is it cleans up a couple matters. It cleans up the law firm's name. It adds for it eliminates the successor agency invoice and it just combines it. Right now we're paying I believe it's $9,500 a month towards retainer. It increases the retainer to $1,100 a month. And then it spells out all the special legal services that we're currently abiding by at this point in time. So it just cleans that up.
Well, I'm just thinking, Scott, we've hired two different attorneys. We hired one to represent us in Sacramento when the MSA was negotiated by the state, and then we hired the law firm to handle the lawsuits. And their fees make this $260 cheap. And that's not to say we can't hire a special attorney when we get into lawsuits.
Yeah, I mean,
We do.
one of the advantages is that we've been using OMLO for some of our litigation, which has helped because prior to them consolidating, we didn't have access to certain type litigation expertise. So I do believe there's a benefit to that because we're not being charged as much because it is within our law firm. Even though it's a special litigation matter, we're not being charged what we may be charged if we hired another firm from the outside just as a special matter.
And so the retainer fee we're operating off of a fee that was back in 2009. So it's been 11 years since we've seen an increase in it. And so I think if you do the math, it seems pretty reasonable, going, X percent of increase, if you date back 11 years. But so to me, it seems pretty reasonable.
But is there any reason why we can't get bids? I mean, just to show our public that we've looked at that and considered that, and we have documentation of what other lawyers do charge. I mean, we do that on all of our other projects where we get bids on infrastructure and things. I mean,
Let me ask this question. I think to start this when we're coming to a significant events coming with water and other things that happen in the city, I am not in favor of changing horses at this very moment in time. What I would like to do is say at the end of, not at the end of the year, so we're rushed to try to do this. We're talking about doing this in agreement for 1 year. Let's review it, look at it, and say then, as in 9 months, we start going out for bids. And we do it not on a rushed basis, not because we want to do it now, but because we want to plan for it and do it correctly.
So one thing I think though is we've already approved our budget for this fiscal year. This change has come afterwards. We're in the middle of the COVID pandemic and we don't know for sure what effect that's going to have. So to approve this retainer at this moment with this big increase, I understand not wanting to change horses, but this was brought to us in the middle of this point. And so that was my question about what happens if we don't approve this tonight. Can we still use them for the time being and figure this out? Because it seems like this was sprung on us after we've looked at our budget and approved our fiscal year budget. So,
well, I think that I feel comfortable. We're only talking an $18,000 a year increase in their retainer.
What about the hourly number?
The hourly rate on special matters, I believe, went up 10%. Keith, Lloyd, but what did your numbers go up for on your billable hours? I don't have that in front of me.
Good evening, folks. Let me say a couple things. One is, Councilmember Heyman is correct. We've been operating with the same retainer unchanged for 11 years. In other words, no cost of living adjustments and so on. That's been in part because the city during that time was facing a significant financial crisis. I remember drafting the resolution to that effect. So I understood how it was, and we agreed to sit back and work for you guys, even though I was giving raises obviously to the employees during that time, but we agreed that that's what was necessary to help the city. The situation's been turned around significantly under the current leadership, and it felt like it was time to try to get the contract back to sort of where it should be, I guess. As far as the market is concerned, I can tell you this. I represent 3 cities as city attorney. They're all about the same size as Ridgecrest. One is Adelanto, one is the city of San Gabriel, and there's Ridgecrest. For San Gabriel, we do work on essentially the same contract you have in front of you, except that the retainer rate for San Gabriel is $19,000. For Adelanto, there is no retainer. Everything is billed hourly, and the hourly billing rate is $275 an hour. So, that reflects the reality of the clients that have hired me and what the market has been for those. We acquired both of those clients within the last 3 years, so that's reflective of the market, I guess.
Okay.
So then, specifically, the question was about the amount of the hours and how that's been adjusted. The intent was to adjust those hours, the hourly rate, by the same increase as the retainer, because again, we haven't had a rate increase in 11 years, so that's supposed to be at least making up some of that difference. Although it doesn't really, if you even map out just the normal cost of living, it's not really close to that. But I understood that there was a limit to how much people could stomach on one contract.
Okay, Keith, we have
Does that address your concerns?
some comments here. Let me take them from the public. And do we still have one up there? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. You're waving your arm. Yes, please. Public, could you please address your comments and questions and identify yourself?
Hi, so my name is Abby Atkinson, and I live in town, and I would just like to speak out in support of the city attorney getting a cost of living adjustment. I think they are doing just fine. I also have an alternative proposal if the city would like to save some money in the legal department, where perhaps if certain members of council stopped pulling the city into frivolous and unnecessary litigation, then perhaps the hourly rate could be reduced. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much. Okay, I see no other public comment. So, Ron and council, do we have anything we'd like to say more to our attorneys?
I didn't have anything specific to say. The attorneys, I think that as long as I've been on the council, they've done a good job. What I wanted to ask is, Ron, we've talked a lot about comparison of other lawyers and making sure that we are at least, I don't know if competitive is the right word, but making sure we're doing due diligence to the taxpayer. You work with a lot of other lawyer firms, I'm sure, in the course of your job. Also, you are the one that interacts with this law firm the most. So can you comment on what we're paying as a city? So not just we can talk about the retainer and the hourly fee. Now, it sounds like I'm weighing on you a lot here, but it's going to be your opinion. But in your opinion, is that amount, is it worth it? Is it competitive? And if we go look elsewhere, right, are we going to find better elsewhere?
I mean, I believe this law firm suffices our needs for the city for the basic law services. As for special needs, we still reach out and deal with our personnel through an additional law firm. I do believe their rates are very competitive from my experience in dealing with other law firms that we engage with. I think Tehachapi's situation is very unique. I know that they pay additional lawyer fees for outside counsel. If you look at some of the experience I've had with our law firm, with just the basic law services, I mean, they've been at $70 an hour for the amount of time they put in. So we're actually getting, twice the amount of legal work as Tehachapi is for their fee. So, I think, we use them for our water. We use them for our wastewater. To be able to change law firms in midstream would be problematic for the city and all the stuff that we have going on. We have litigation in process to be able to change that, and I don't see any significant issues that would require us to look for another law firm, one for quality or the other for cost. I think we get sued. We have legal issues that we have to address. So we're always going to need legal help, and there's always going to be a cost to that. So I think that, I'm as city manager, I'm happy with their performance. They don't have an issue if we have to go outside counsel for special purposes, which we do. So from a staff's perspective, I'm okay.
I appreciate your opinion. I just want to make sure that we're fleshing out all of the options. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I may say I'm happy, and Ron, you're happy. I just want to make sure that everybody's happy and that we're doing the public the service of making sure we're talking about every aspect of this. And I know we're anchoring down and spending a lot of time, but I think it's worth it. It is a big part of our budget. So if there's something I haven't thought about, maybe. And Mike, I brought this up before. I mean, I know you have a lot more experience on council than I do.
I was going to say, add to that, I don't have a problem next year of requesting bids. I think you're going to get some cheaper, you're going to get some more expensive. But, the quality could vary. And just cheaper doesn't necessarily mean better.
Right.
So I'd like to kind of add to that too. I personally think the work that the legal counsel work that we've had from both the attorneys, Lloyd and Keith, it's been better than satisfactory. I think it's been very good services. One of the biggest issues that we have in front of us right now, and it's going to be here for a while, is water. And I sit in a room with a lot of attorneys, and they're specialists in their fields, and I will say unequivocally that Keith's knowledge and his expertise in water is right up there with the best of them, if not better than most of the attorneys that we sit in with. and his guidance and helping us lead us through this water issue. I think it's important that we don't separate the ties and lose that right now. So I think that's an extremely important aspect of what we're discussing tonight. So anyway.
Okay, so is there a motion or more discussion?
I had a question. What did we budget for legal for this year? Do we know?
I believe it was about 350,000.
Okay, because I was just looking at, because I had requested the legal fees, and so in 2019 we spent 265, 454 with OMLO, and in 2020, fiscal year 2020, we spent 411,233, and so I was just curious because I think a big part of that jump was the GSA, but I would just wanted to know what we had budgeted, because if we're seeing that number replicated because of all the negotiations we're seeing going on.
Right. You'll see that part of that funding last year was reimbursed through our insurance company for litigation. Another amount to that, probably 87,000 of that, will be reimbursed through the GSA for Keith's time on that. So the number is a little bit lower than that when you talk about actual general fund money.
Is there a guarantee, because I know there's been lots of scrutiny from people that we're getting our legal fees paid for and others aren't for the GSA, and is that in, because we haven't received payment yet, are we guaranteed that, or is that still up for debate? Could that be taken away?
Well, it's part of the $105 fee, and it's part of the resolution for us to be reimbursed on that. And I think it's more than appropriate, since the citizens of Ridgecrest are paying every which way but Sunday for the GSA through the county, through the water district, and through the city. So I think that us getting our attorney fees reimbursed, and this is my opinion for the last 3 years, as it should be.
Okay.
But there's not necessarily a guarantee on it, right?
We're going to be paid back. It's part of the schedule for us to be paid back. We have just deferred our reimbursement, so then the water resource manager, Stetson, can be paid.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this retainer agreement.
Second.
Please vote. We have 4 ayes, 1 no from Ms. Stevens. The motion does carry.
Okay, the next item.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you. All right, the next item is discussion of resolution before the League of Cities to be voted on at the League's annual conference and provide guidance to the city's voting member and delegate. And Kyle, I know you are our voting member and delegate. Did you want to address it along with staff?
I can address it. So I'll just sorry, that's a little bit loud. I'll hold that away. So real quick, a lot of people are probably not aware what the League of Council City is. The League of California Cities is an association made up of California cities, just like it sounds, all over the state of California. And basically, their purpose is to provide a lot of resources back to the various cities, but also to do their best to influence policy at a state level. So what we have before us and what we will be voting on, so when I say we, I mean the city of Ridgecrest through their voting member, myself, in the general, in the general committee, because there's all kinds of committees in the League of California Cities. We'll vote on a resolution. This resolution is to amend Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996. And so this is going to take a while, so sorry you're going to get tired of hearing me talk. But I hope that at some point people watching feel like calling in and adding to this some sort of public comment. Because I would like direction from council, but I would also personally appreciate any kind of public comment back after I've discussed this at length. So I'll read the resolution. So hopefully you guys sit back and get comfortable. The resolution of the General Assembly of the League of California Cities is calling for an amendment of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996 to require social media companies to remove materials which promote criminal activities. I'll say this after reading through this packet multiple times. When I first read this resolution, it sounded like a good thing that maybe, oh, that would be smart, right? But I'm not. After reading through the whole packet, I think at some point we get down to a First Amendment debate. So, the city of Cerritos is the one that originally pushed this forward, and there's been concurrence from the cities Hawaiian Gardens, City of Lakewood, City of Ontario, City of Rancho Cucamonga, and the City of Roseville are all other cities that concur this should be pushed forward. I don't know if anybody would like me to read this thing in its entirety. Maybe that's not necessary. It's all in the packet, right, Rick? I think I saw it in the packet. So if anybody wants to read it, it's out there.
So what is your recommendation?
Oh, you're just going to cut right to the chase, Mike? You don't want me to read? Because I got like 4 or 5 pages.
I was going to say.
So here's what I'm going to say. There could be this this goes through and it goes to Congress, and U.S. Congress decides to amend Section 230 of this Decency Act. It has enormous implications. It would require social media agencies to monitor all traffic, basically, if I'm summarizing. The reason Cerritos brought it up is because, in recent events that went from, there was protesting, some of that led to rioting, and some of that led to looting. And a lot of these cities believe that social media sites are complicit in allowing that to go on. And they're not incorrect, but then again, you have to decide where that line is drawn. How far do you want social media companies to track everything that's being said? And then the implications are then, do you require that information be passed to law enforcement agencies? Do the cities then bear the burden of holding on to that data? So on and so forth. So I'll say when I first read the resolution, at a first glance, I was like, oh, this is good. Let's hold people accountable for being irresponsible. But as I read through it, I'm a strong proponent of the First Amendment, and so I don't know if I like the idea of ever getting to the point to where a social media site is censored.
But don't they censor already?
I was going to say, based
They
on
do.
information
And
I've read, they censor already.
Whether it's within their likes or direction that they want to see things move, they will censor things out. I've seen it in person, and so that's a question.
It is definitely a question, Doc, and that's something that, and I could read an excerpt here that might lead you. So basically, what you don't want to do is further that deterioration of the First Amendment, is my opinion. And so if you'd like to hear, there's a lot of information here, but I know, Mike, you want me to sort of cut to the chase. I'm going to drag on a moment.
I don't want to fall asleep while you're reading.
Well, sorry, you have to give me this. So the President of the United States, his comments were that the growth of online platforms in recent years raises important questions about applying the ideals of the First Amendment to modern communications technology. Today, many Americans follow the news, stay in touch with friends and family, share the views on current events through social media and other online platforms. As a result, these platforms function in many ways as a 21st century equivalent of the public square. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube wield immense, if not unprecedented power to shape the interpretation of public events, to censor, delete, or disappear information, and to control what people see or do not see. The President has a strong opinion on the First Amendment, and I don't mean to just weigh on the President. Now, some of these cities have a valid claim. Now,
why don't you read the paragraph right after that one, because I think that's a good
Okay,
one.
sure, yeah. So ultimately, the President implores the U.S. Attorney General to develop a proposal for federal legislation that would be useful to promote the policy objectives of this order. The President is not subtle in communicating his desire to ultimately see legislation heavily slanted towards the preservation of free speech on social media, which some interpret as a maneuver to preempt Twitter and Facebook from regulating speech they otherwise deem as hateful or demonstrably false. So again, this is where in my opinion, we get to a gray area. These are corporations, right? if they want to censor stuff, and they do, according to the FOSTA, the Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act, and the SESTA, the Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act. There has been amendments to Section 230 in those instances. So there are times when these platforms step in, of course, as they should. We all agree. And if stuff is abhorrent, it probably should definitely be pulled out of the public sphere. So I present to you a gray area, basically. Now, it's my inclination to not want to ever deteriorate the First Amendment. And I think if you don't want to take part, if you don't want to be on Twitter, if you don't want to be on YouTube or whatever, that you shouldn't be there. However, these other cities, what they present is they should be held liable, whether it be Twitter, Instagram, any social media platforms, if they're allowing people to trend or hashtag certain events, especially in this case where it was looting. People were trending a hashtag loot the mall, and people were able to use the platform to then go and loot, well, to get together to go loot the mall, right? They weren't using the platform from that case. You just have to decide how strongly you take the First Amendment and where you draw that line. And so that's where I then present it to you, the council, to please give me your comments. Hopefully the public's listening as well. I'd like their comments. I do not vote until the 8th. So there's some time for me to take, but it's up for you guys to give me your direction.
I think what it seems like to me is, because this has been a hot button issue up at the federal level and with the president weighing in on the attorney general, that likely we're going to see some sort of policy be rewritten on this and how those platforms are managed. So I don't know if they're kind of getting ahead of the game there, because it is a fuzzy area. And they had a list of questions down at the end.
Sure.
That I thought were really valuable, because they're similar to what, what's the impact on free speech? So I think it's interesting how this is going to come down. And I wish, and I'll state this, I wish that the league, watching the past several years, the things that have come forward, I think there was one year where they actually took a stand against some of those propositions of reducing misdemeanors and things on the state. But the years since then, I think last year we talked about food vendors and rat poison. I just am a little disappointed that they aren't hard hitting a little bit more on our state issues, because we have a lot of them.
Well, we do. So I'll say this: the last time I was up in Sacramento, I was briefed on, and they were heavily, and I think were instrumental in defeating a bill that would it would infringe on local municipalities' ability to zone. And so they were instrumental in defeating that bill. I'm not defending them. I'm not saying you're incorrect. I'm just saying that they do good work, I believe, and I think they're instrumental. We need them.
I just wish that we would have some more things of like state substance to be discussing.
Sure, more hard hitting. Yep. Yeah, I get you. Would you guys like me to read these questions real quick? Questions to consider, or sure. Mike? Okay, why not? First one is, what would this resolution's impact be on free speech and government censorship? The second one is, what are the expectations for cities when they receive information from a social media platform about a potentially credible threat in their respective communities? Does a city become liable for having information from a social media platform and the threat then occurs? What would the cost be to develop and maintain new data governance policies, including data infrastructure, to store this information? What is the role of the league in engaging in issues relating to someone's privacy?
Well, being the oldest person here, I've seen a lot of changes in freedom of speech over the years. There's a word that I find very offensive, that when I was a kid was never spoken in mixed company. And now, a few years ago, we heard the Vice President of the United States say it, not the current Vice President of the United States, the one that's running to be President of the United States, say it, thinking of saying it privately. It was picked up on hot mic. And the word starts with an F. And I don't know how you control speech. I think the social media is controlling speech right now. I don't think I don't think voting for this is going to change it much. I've been told that you can go on the internet and you can find job opportunities for rioting. I don't know how true that is. I don't do social media, so I shouldn't say that. Occasionally I get emails saying that one of my wife's friends on social media has posted something. I'll go read that, and some are nice. Like my daughter, when she graduated from college, she posted a nice statement about her graduation and thanked her parents. I thought that was kind of nice. But I know a person in town here that announced to all her friends that she was getting off social media because she was tired of reading all the hatred. But I don't know how you control that. You got a fine line between free speech and offensive behavior.
Sure. Yeah, it's a line it's walked every day, and it's precarious.
So I'm not sure whether you should vote for this or not. I think we got someone calling in with an opinion, but I'm not sure I would suggest to you that you vote for this.
Okay, thanks.
And I get the impression from your talk you're not strongly in favor of voting for it.
I'm not strongly in favor, but there could be other things I'm not considering, so I'm always open to it. We can take the public comment.
Let me ask the attorneys if they could just look at something, and could you tell us what sort of liability we have trying to enforce this? And while you're thinking about that, let's go to public comment. Pardon me?
It's not suggesting that we would enforce it. It's the social media platforms.
Well, what do we? Well, wait a minute. Let's get this one.
Could we get sued for not trying to enforce something?
All right, public. Please call in. Caller, please identify yourself and state your question or comment.
Hi, it's Dave Matthews. Believe it or not, excuse me. I think this is something that the League of California Cities should just let the federal government handle, because, I'm old enough that I remember when radio just started coming online. And the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, was established to handle similar situations like this with radio and then television. And I think these social media platforms, even though I don't use them, are similar. And it's got to be uniform throughout the whole country. So that is my suggestion, that we just tell them, or I don't know what, you're going to be the 8th. I don't know if anything's going to come out of Congress or the federal government before then or not, but I think we should just let the federal FCC commission handle this.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Matthews.
There's
You
no
pretty
other.
summed up my feelings. Freedom of speech has been taken a long ways. Like, protesters have the right to burn the flag. I really take offense to that. The Supreme Court ruled they can. But we pledge allegiance to that flag. That flag is a symbol of our liberty. And I think when an American burns that flag, they're telling the American people to get screwed. But the Supreme Court has ruled they can burn that flag, which I think that flag should be sacred, and it shouldn't fall into that category. But I agree with Dave. I think we should vote no on this and defer it to the federal government.
Thanks, Mike.
Could I ask, on page 6, there's a listing of 3 things that the league says, and in the number 3, an online platform that willfully or negligently fails in either of these duties is not immune from enforcement of state and local laws which impose criminal or civil liability for such failures. And there's a list of other things up there that say that. I don't want a League of Cities to tell me, our city, our police chief, what to enforce and what not to enforce. I think it should be a law, not opinions of governors or people or legislators until it's passed and approved, and then adjudicated whether it's real or not. I believe my right. I hate some of the stuff I see on Facebook and social media, and I think some of it is to the point of being so biased it's worthless on both sides. And so I don't want to see us use Facebook being used as a club against each other. It should be, if you want to pass out information, that's okay. If you want to share your opinion, that's okay. But to put legal liability laws in it, and I posted something the other day that I thought sounded pretty good, and I got a thing back saying, this is not true. And I'm going, really? I just copied it from somebody I respected a whole lot. But the fact comes down to, I don't want anybody to tell me what's true or not true. If I'm going to read something and not follow up and look at it and try to determine if it's valid, I don't want you to tell me what I just read is untrue if I'm not willing to do the work to find out. And that's what it comes down to. Oh, I got a call. Okay. All right, caller. Would you guys come down about the liability? Do we have to enforce that? But let's take this call. Caller, please identify yourself and state your name and state your concern.
Yes, my name is Mike Neal, and let me just give 3 cheers to Mr. Blades for his fervent support of First Amendment rights of free speech. These kind of rights are absolutely fundamental to our democracy. I'm not going to say that, a Republican form of government where people get to say what they want to say. I could, if I wanted to say, well, Mr. Maurer just recently said offends me. He used a kind of a semi-bad word. Well, you know what? Free speech is the right to say what you want. And you go a few years back, you don't have to go that far back, the only kind of speech that was criminal was speech actually in favor of criminal activity. Now, this business of trying to foist this policing onto social media platforms, whatever they want to foist it onto, is pretty much a waste of time, because we all know that if people want to create mass means of communication in order to garner gatherings, protests, whatever they want to do, if Facebook or Twitter, while I'm on there, they'll figure out some other way, or somebody will create some other platform. It's been done numerous times, and whatever you try to quash it with, it's like a bad weed. It'll pop up somewhere else. But I would say that situations like this, the platform always needs to be grabbed a hold of and used as a soapbox to stand up and propound for freedom of speech for the citizens on all occasions, up to propounding criminal kinds of behavior. That, of course, is clear to anybody with any common sense. Should not be tolerated. But these kinds of supposed decency acts, what they are levers to get in and politically control and implement politically correct speech is what these always end up being. And you end up having your freedom of speech suppressed, and you're hearing some freedom of speech in the background there by some young children, so enjoy it. So we need to speak up. You need to speak up, Kyle. You need to use this as an opportunity, because there are too many people who have bitten the bad apple here, and they are willing to suppress speech in this country, and they use acts like this to do it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Kyle, do you have any other questions, or does any of the council have any other comments for Kyle or direction? I see no other public comment. I'm assuming because no one's called in.
Mr. Lemieux was speaking.
Who?
Madam Mayor, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
All
hear
right,
you, Keith.
please.
Did you want me to speak on my opinion regarding liability?
Yes.
So I do think there's a potential liability issue here that has me concerned, but it's not about whether or not we sign on to this resolution. The resolution really does very little, in truth. What it does is it asks the Congress to amend a federal law, which they can decide to do or not do. I don't know what the effect of passing the resolution would be on that. What concerns me is the law. So what they're really saying is right now, these online companies have an immunity from liability for what's posted on their site. What this resolution is doing is it's asking Congress to change that rule so that the online platform has to have a program to identify content that solicits crime. And then the second part is they have to cooperate with law enforcement to provide evidence of that if it's requested by law enforcement. That second part's actually what has me concerned about liability. So if this is adopted, presumably, then it puts our police in the situation where they're going to presumably approach Facebook or something and ask them for evidence that Facebook will be collecting. What concerns me is it puts Facebook in the position of being kind of an adjunct to the police department. And if evidence comes through that mechanism, I'm concerned that there may be Fourth Amendment issues involved in that could interfere with or actually cause problems with the criminal investigation. You know, you're kind of making them into a private police force, essentially. And that's the issue I've got with it. So this may be the rare situation where Mike Neal and I are roughly on the same page.
Okay, thank you.
I could tell you from a law enforcement perspective, the only way we get that information from Facebook would be through a search warrant with probable cause. So the city would be protected in that regard.
Good. Okay, I see another public comment. Caller, please identify yourself and state your concern or question.
I don't know. I think they may have just answered it because the guy was talking about the stuff. So I may.
Please to also, caller, turn off your phone, your listening device, monitoring device. We're hearing me speak back.
It should be off now.
Caller, are you there? Okay, we're going to assume the caller is not listening to us. Okay. All right, Keith, go ahead. I thought you wanted to speak, Keith.
That was it.
That was it. Okay.
And as Keith explained, is also how I understand it as well. That was one of my concerns. Well, chief among them being the First Amendment, but then could be, I mean, like he said, conceivably Congress passes an amendment to Section 230. It's all a long shot. I think it's more of just how does it look? What are we representing? How are we placing this vote? That's really what it comes down to. We could always talk about the risk and the legal implications and the financial implications, you know, when it's passed at a federal level. But what are we as a city council, then what are we representing?
Well, I recommend you vote no.
Yeah. Same.
I would recommend a no vote too, because I think any censorship of of free speech. I mean, whether it's we like what we hear, it's a double-edged sword too, and some stuff that we would want to be heard isn't heard anymore, and so it's.
Well, and
some of the stuff that police. Well, oh, I'm sorry, but some of the stuff that they're going after, I could see where like if it's the flash mob mentality of going after a mall or whatever. But I mean, if somebody sends out terrible information in the mail, we don't condemn the U.S. Mail Service. We condemn the act that they're doing, and I'd like to see more work done toward that aspect of it. Go after the people that are committing the crimes and doing the the wrong thing. They're going to use sources to get to what they're doing, but that's a really tricky.
Slippery slope.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so you've got our direction.
Yep, I have direction. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And I'm always willing to take, as we go, public comment and any kind
All right. Thank you. So public, if you call Kyle, if you're right, Kyle, email Kyle if you have anything more you want to add at the last minute.
Text, Facebook message, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, get a hold of me. Yeah.
What he's saying, he's open to listening, so thank you. All right, the next item, discussion and provide guidance to the city's representative on the board of the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority. Scott.
Okay, so we we haven't met since the last meeting. We are meeting tomorrow. Some of the top items on the agenda are going to be discussion of the Brown Armstrong. It's an audit group, CPA group that's doing audit funding for that. Probably most important ones maybe the extending the tolling agreements with the parties that we have existing tolling agreements with now, to extend out these agreements so that any legal challenges would be put off for a little while longer. So that will be discussed. The other stuff is a little more just basic mechanical. We're going to be reviewing water metering, some past due accounts, and I think that's pretty much it. I don't have the agenda right in front of me, but that would be the primary items that we're going to be discussing. So I'm open to any questions or comments.
Questions from council?
I have a few questions, and I might have more later. But reading through the agenda, I noticed that one item on the agenda was talking about future plan. Was it out to 2035 or so? And what I hope to see, especially out of the hot button issue of passing the fee, right? And so after that fee was passed, what I'm hoping we see out of the GA, this isn't directed at you, but I'm just saying if we're going to talk about the future of the GA and what they're going to do, we can always talk about the things that are right in front of us and should. But if we're talking about the future after 2035, maybe we'll talk about, because I see them vaguely referenced in the GSP, exploration of wells, right? And then maybe also refining the reports or coming up with new reports to study the soil and what that well exploration brings back, as well as, finding out the actual recharge into our basin. When I was doing research into the water, I've been doing it for months and months and months. You guys have been doing it for a lot longer than I have. I noticed that there were two different TOD reports, and in those TOD reports, they both reference different recharge rates, right? And the most recent recharge rate, of course, is 7650. That's what we're going off of, and we're basically here where we are right now today because of this TOD report. And I will accept that because that's what's been presented as, as evidence, you could say. That being said, I would say we should always be exploring and searching, and I'm hoping that part of our future plan, we should look forward instead of, any kind of backward regression. If we're going to progress into the future, hopefully that's part of our future plan. And I understand it probably has been referenced or talked about, but I just wanted to, as a city council, make sure we're foot stomping that we are looking for those other water sources, and that there is going to be a financial plan to fund those sources. Not just those, but also checking into the soil, looking at everything there is to look at. Let's be a scientific community, as it were. But I had some other comments on agenda items, but I won't just talk all night.
Well, why don't you ask your other questions so we can get to them, and
so we can just get them right out of the way.
Yeah,
well, one of the other you started to touch on, but since I'm not sure, what is Brown Armstrong? What services Brown Armstrong provide?
They are a CPA group, I believe, out of Bakersfield, but they have done the last 2 years of audits. And basically, it's just that there was a lot more work involved than they had initially anticipated, and so I think they're requesting a little additional funding.
Okay, and do you
they
think that
have it itemized out on the agenda
Yeah.
as for what those items were and what the extra work was done? So
I just want to get your take on whether it was worth it or not. Right? If I see it on the agenda as something you guys are going to have to vote on approving.
That's something that the board will discuss and determine what to do with it. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I had a couple things I wanted to talk about since the item last time I wasn't here for. But I also want to pick up on his exploration. That's something I've had discussions with Mr. Strand about, is I feel strongly that should be one of I wish we would have actually have already done it. I think it's really important to find, because we've heard over and over again from all the different agencies, the Southwest area needs to be looked at, and I think the Water District even has some ability to go out there and do it, and so I would really like us to encourage them to just go forward and do what they can right now and see if it's worth putting more money into, because I mean, if we were to discover that we had a river running underground over there, that's going to significantly change how we go about what we're doing. So I think that's going to be critical that we get that done as soon as possible. We've done a lot of other things and spent a lot of money, and that could significantly impact even the plan that we have and the water rights we go after. I have.
How about I address one question? Or,
Okay.
I'll touch
I
base
didn't
on
know
that.
because with him they said get them all out. So.
I'm speaking off the cuff on this exploration in the southwest area, but maybe Ron could help me out on this one. But wasn't there an attempt at exploring that area and drilling a well, but then funding was insufficient and was put off?
I do believe it's something that the GA and the Water District is looking at within the next year. Yeah, and I think it might have been about the time I came on board, but I do believe that was in the PAC-TAC meetings that I attended, and that they were, and I think it was a funding issue, but I think there is still inquisitiveness going that direction.
The brackish water group is also.
Well, another outside source of water.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're looking at various, anything squeezing the turnip, I guess you could say. Sure. Because the brackish water issue has been brought up, and there's discussions about that, and how could we use brackish water, and I don't want to get into all the the tidbits of it right now, but I mean, because then you get into you're still mining water out of the basin and reducing storage, but those would be things I can bring forward to as we hear more about it, and I can bring that up to the board, as far as, that exploration thing. Is it still on the, agenda to look at?
Put it towards the top of the list.
Well, money would take you to the top of the list. So you bring the money and we'll find you. We'll get you to the top of the list.
I'm just generally interested, like I said, being a scientific community. And when I read the salt and mineral report, it outlined, a very complex basin, a lot more complex than I thought it was. And so when I started thinking about, we understand some of the basin, but maybe not all of it. So I think maybe just getting out there and figuring it all out would be beneficial to us in the future.
I agree with that. The thing is, if you look at it from the big picture, I've heard it stated, I would say it's probably pretty true. We're probably one of the most studied and overstudied basins in the United States. The number of, thousands of hours, the hundreds of, I don't know it's about hundreds, but it's scores of people that have been involved with it, whether it's, through the PAC-TAC meetings and all these brilliant people. So I with the scientific data we have and everything we're going with, it's as sound as what we got to go on, and it's a lot more sound than probably others.
Like I said, I know we're operating off what kind of evidence we have at this moment and what's being trusted and what's being used. I know how that goes. But if we're going to talk, about the impacts of a fee that was imposed, we don't need to get into that so much as since it's there, right? And that how that money gets spent is very important and is going to be highly scrutinized. I just hope that we're looking at how to use that money properly.
One thing we need to remember, there's not just GSA funding, but there's other Department of Water Resources funding that's been going on for years. Mm-hmm. And right now, I just got reminded again that there is a Department of Water Resources exploration well that's supposed to be beginning in December. So let's remember that there's a lot of other things working together, all of them to the same end. How do we augment and best serve our valley with its needs as reasonably as possible? But look, the brackish water group has been working with numerous different people, entities, trying to find ways to do this, as well as all the other water groups in the valley.
Yeah.
So it seems, Peggy, you have a little bit of the legacy knowledge on that. Where is the brackish water group? I haven't seen them progress in their reporting.
They are, the last I knew, they were waiting and to see what happened with the funding and the GSA. They're still working on projects. In fact, they were still working on the potential of brackish water in Searles Valley. There was even discussion of putting treatment facilities out there to augment huge sums of brackish water they have, and one of them may have been a Navy
Desal plant,
desal plant
off of a carrier, right? Is that what you're
Yeah.
referring to? Yeah.
And so just because we are concentrating mostly on those things, there's others that are being done all the time. Some of them reasonable, some of them, let's just look at it and see what happens. And
Yep.
some private funding.
You bet. I just want to make sure I'm asking the questions and the public here is asking these questions because there are things that people want to know. They want to make sure that we're looking at all of these options and every avenue there is to look at, that we're not just blowing past, and that we, the city, aren't then backing the GA in railroading the entire valley, right? That seems to be the perception. And knowing what I know after doing all the research and talking to the amount of people I have, that may not be the case. But maybe refocusing the public and explaining all of this stuff, at least as best as I can, as much as I know,
Well,
and talking about it here, and just keep renewing that conversation. I think, like Peggy, you've been involved in it in a very long time, and you have a lot of knowledge.
Since 1983.
Right. A lot of knowledge, but a lot of people haven't. And when we start talking about money, well, people get real interested, and maybe they weren't always as focused as they are right now. So I think renewing these conversations is important.
Some of them, it's important to understand I'm going to call it far out things. The recapture of steam from COSO. That is a huge potential for water in the valley. Is it going to be done tomorrow? No. But looking into it, studying and seeing what can happen there, because the amount of water that the potential for capture is pretty large. The cost is not easily done. And then the legality, what does that affect? The water that's coming out of Inyo County? What?
Keith, did you have something?
Keith, did you?
Can I add just a couple comments real quick?
Go ahead.
I think everything you guys are saying is essentially correct. I just want to point out that the GSP that we adopted at the beginning of the year is, I guess you could call it a living document, meaning the GSA has an obligation to continue to update that document and improve on it with new, it's a scientific document as Councilmember Blades pointed out, and that means that it has to evolve with the new information, and we have to keep the scientific inquiry going. So all of these topics are issues of concern, and we're getting them handled. They're being funded by different sources. Let me just say regarding brackish water, as an aside, brackish water is a little different because that's still counted as part of our native water. It's not new water. It is a water quality issue. It can affect where the water is drawn from physically in the basin, but it's not a way of developing additional water resources per se. So it's a little bit in a different category, but it's nevertheless important for the reasons I think you guys were discussing, and so that's still proceeding as far as I know. It's not necessarily part of the work of the GSA right now because we're trying to find new supplemental water.
Right. I just wanted to keep these conversations going and keep them up into the public sphere, especially with the GSA, the amount of power they have over the most precious resource to all of us, especially in this valley in the middle of the desert. Stuff should all be talked about, every last bit of it. I think that's the only comments I had. So I guess we don't need to give you, at least offer,
We're not giving them direction, we're just talking.
Just discussing the GSA in general.
Okay, is there any other comments from the
I
board?
had some
Oh,
more.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, because you said we wanted to do them one at a time. So last time was on the agenda to talk about how we're on the GSA, and also I had asked for feedback from the attorneys because I had concerns, because I had asked them to find, when we agreed to join the GSA, what premise that was under. And I went back and found it, and there was a long conversation by Wayne Lemieux about how we agreed I wasn't on yet. I was watching from out there, but that was back when Jim Sanders was even here. And there was lots of discussion about how our rep would vote and how the rep would be following the board's direction. And there was a lot said about how that would be done. And I understand, like, the attorneys, their response was that they've morphed their opinion since then. But they also pointed out that case law hasn't changed on this yet. There hasn't been a case law to change that. And so it concerns me because what was agreed upon by the majority of council was that the rep would follow the majority of the council when they go to vote there. And so it concerns me because we never changed that as a council. Like, we've just, all of a sudden, this kind of thing morphed, and then all of a sudden it was thrown on us that this is no longer are they really a representative of the city council. They're kind of autonomous. And so that concerns me, that we made a big change like that without having us agree to it, because there's been no case law to change that. I also have concerns about the GSA. As we've seen, it takes a lot of time and money and resources from our city. We're taking over next year, and I watched the water district. The plan originally was that Don Zadiba would stay on as the general manager, but the water district is now giving direction that they aren't going to allow that come January 1. And so that's concerning, because I know the last time we were in charge, you were inundated. I mean, basically, and so it concerns me that our city business kind of gets put on the sidelines, because this is a big issue and it's a lot of work. So I think we need to have discussions about that and how we're going to handle that. And I still...
Lindsay, can I wait 1 minute? Because you were asking some pretty significant questions. Let's try to address them then one at a time.
Well, I just didn't want to get them lost.
I know, but I want Keith and Ron to address, and Lloyd, if you would, what Lindsay called the morphing. I don't know if that was necessarily a morphing, but however you want to characterize it, would you tell us what is that and why is the reason?
Yeah, this is Keith. Lloyd's not on the call right now.
Okay.
Just me. So I understand and appreciate what Lindsay's saying. I want to correct up front, the opinion from us is not that your representative is no longer your representative. That's not at all what this opinion is about. Let me explain what it is. This has to do with being sensitive to the Brown Act and promoting public participation at meetings. And the fundamental issue is if you've got a vote that takes place at the city council meeting that directs your representative, that's binding on your representative, so that your representative has only one choice, which is to vote a certain way, the way you've directed, then when he goes to the hearing the next day, the public's participation at that hearing is meaningless, because his vote was already decided the night before. And where you have multiple entities, the Board of Supervisors, the Water District, and so on, all having meetings where they're discussing these things, you can imagine the problem. You essentially end up with a majority of the board that's already decided. And what that does is that's just not fair to the public. The public has not had the opportunity to participate at the meeting. So that's not to say that your comments aren't important. The reason we have this item on the agenda is so that your representative can hear the opinions of council and take that into consideration. And I know that your current representative has heard those opinions, and he does take them into consideration. But it can't go so far as to actually tie his hands. That's the opinion. Once you've tied his hands, you've basically eliminated the public participation at the actual meeting where the vote is taking place.
But
so that's the issue. Now, as far as
it was your own father, like, who, as our lawyers said that happens consistently on all kinds of boards throughout the state, and that's exactly how that's supposed to be done. And so it concerns me because it seems like, and public perception is, and not just public perception, my perception is because at one time, one of the representatives was given direction to vote a way that they didn't personally want to vote. All of a sudden, the opinion changed of our lawyers as well. And I don't think that that's fair or right, because we are supposed to be representing the city. And so we are supposed to be giving guidance as the city. And I mean, if you go back and listen to, I'd highly encourage anyone, it's from August 3rd, 2016 at 1 hour and 38 minutes. Please go listen to it, because he lays out very clearly why it's okay for it to be done that way. And if no case law has come forward yet to change that, I don't feel like we should be changing it if that's the way we voted to join the GSA. I understand that maybe you've kind of developed your opinion to follow that of Mr. Hall's, which Mr. Hall's opinion has always been this way. But as the city, when we voted to join, it was under the idea that our representative would be following the majority of the city council, and not just how the representative felt like voting.
Yeah, but this item says
So
discuss and provide guidance, not tell him how to vote. It's to give him guidance. You know, I serve on two committees. I serve on KernCog and I serve on East Kern Air Pollution Quality. I don't have to come in here before those meetings, tell you what they're about, and you guys tell me how to vote. So I never felt good back when that was done in 16, that we were approving it, say we were going to tell him how to vote. That just doesn't seem right to me, because I agree with the fact that he may hear something tomorrow at the meeting that makes perfect sense, and he may hear something tomorrow at a closed session meeting that makes perfect sense that we're not privy to. So I had no problem expressing my opinion last time, and he heard my opinion. He still voted the way he felt he needed to vote, which I don't. You know, Peggy, I'm going to share something here. Peggy and I totally disagree on this to some degree. Peggy called me up and asked me to come down and talk to her, and I talked to her. She did not want to offend me, so she is willing to back off on her stand in order to not offend me. My feeling is that Peggy and I are friends, and she can disagree with me, I can disagree with her, and we can still be friends. And I have no problem with the way Councilman Heyman voted at the last meeting. I would have preferred that we delayed it a couple of months, but I have no problem with the way he voted. He voted his conscience.
Okay, so Keith, would you like to answer some of Lindsay's concerns?
Yeah, let me explain something too. It is correct that I originally had the contrary opinion. It's also correct that there is no case law on. But I did, in the context of working with the GA, I was exposed to county council's opinion, and we had, believe me, a quite robust debate about that. The result of that debate is that county council solicited from the Attorney General's office an opinion regarding this topic. We have not gotten that opinion yet, but it's supposedly pending. So there's a practical consideration for right now, too, which is if the AG comes back and says that this is a Brown Act violation, I don't want to have been doing it for the last X number of years. If the AG comes back and says, well, it's okay to take a vote, we don't see that as a Brown Act violation, then, you know, we can re-examine this opinion. But it seems like under the circumstances, it would be prudent to be careful about it, particularly given that I know the city has the highest standards when it comes to the Brown Act and transparency, that you guys are very careful about that. And so that's the basis for the, I guess you could say, the change in opinion.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead, Lindsay, if you don't mind, so we don't hold up the public comment on this one. Do you mind if I go to take that?
No, go ahead.
All right. Public, please identify yourself and state your concern or question.
Hello?
Hello, go ahead, please.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, my name is Mike Neal, and boy, this is fertile ground for comment. I could go 20 minutes real easy on this one.
Well, you got 5, sir.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
Piggy. 5 and not one more second. So let me just say how interesting it is to hear your lawyer all of a sudden get so keen on the Brown Act. I believe this is the same law firm that I had to instruct on how to post closed session meeting agenda items properly about 4 years ago. That had been going on for, I don't know, a couple of years. And, what should have been done was all those meetings should have been basically canceled and redone, and all the response was, we just won't do that again. Yeah, you're right. Well, why couldn't they get it right the first time and do it right the first time? You ask him, I don't know, but he wasn't willing to actually correct it properly. And now, because he wants to push this thing of, you can't instruct your representative, it's a Brown Act problem. Well, that's smokescreen and, convenience, basically. Unless he's learned an awful lot about the spirit of the Brown Act since 2016. As far as one of the bigger problems with the GA, all this talk about, looking for more water, all these technical details, things that people get basically sidetracked, rabbit trailed on. Here's the problem with the GA. They're not listening. They're not listening to the people. They proved that at the last meeting. Your representative is not listening to the people. When you get 50% of a protest vote on one of these phony, baloney 218 kind of things where your vote's assumed to be a yes unless you mail in and say it's a no, you got to know. Everybody's pretty much against it because you got to know, number one, a lot of those went down the trash can when they got received. Number two, the way they padded the vote roll by sending notices out to people with properties who knew they weren't going to get impacted and didn't care about it and made it, tried to set an impossible milestone. It was a joke. And yet, they saw all this evidence that people didn't want this to happen. They heard, statements by myself and others that were obvious to a high schooler that the whole plan and the allocation table was unfair and totally excluded water source that could eliminate half of the water they're trying to go out and get, paid no attention, and just went on ahead and voted it in. Now, the Water District did direct their representative, and he voted against it, gave his reasons. Scott Heyman sat there, not listened, and voted for it. Now, I say it's time to change who we got on the GA board. We are not happy, period, with Mr. Heyman and how he's just gone right along with Mick Gleason's rabid agenda on this, and we need a change. We need a big change because we are sick of not being heard.
Is that the answer?
That's my comment.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, Lindsay.
You got another.
Oh, is there another caller on there? Is that him still on there?
There you go.
Okay. Caller, please identify yourself and state your concern or comment.
Yes,
Caller.
Andrew Getsko. Can you hear me all right?
Say that again, please.
Andrew Getsko. Can you hear me?
Please. Go ahead and speak.
All right. I am concerned about the Brown Act as well. I am concerned with the approach for it. I know that the justifications for ignoring some of these opinions, which really is what it seems to come down to, are based on... Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. But they're based on trying to justify a ability to vote however you want regardless. I think that it has been expressed by the community that many people are feeling that this allows for many hidden agendas to play their role and pull us any which direction. I understand that we're required to be able to, at least according to the opinion that was expressed, listen to the opinion of the public and take the direction as it's being put forth. But it seems like one of the ways that we can help mitigate this problem is to try to work on constraint-based opinions, where we look at the ability to say, hey, these are the things that we would agree could impact these decisions. These things are decided already. An opinion tomorrow isn't going to change it. For example, a disaster happened or the water level has been decided as this. Nothing about the opinion tomorrow, the public's going to change those as facts. So when these decisions are based on those facts, you can start using those as guideposts to say that these are how we are directing our members to vote based on these opinions. We need something that is being based on addressing these facts and changing these understandings, or something that changes the understanding of the position of the public. It seems that we could go further to put these constraints, and that would help at least call out those who choose not to follow the wishes of a vote and basically make it feel like the vote is meaningless.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yes.
Is that it?
That is it, yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. Okay. Caller, please state your name and identify and state your concern.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Kathy Brown calling in. First of all, I'd just like to make a quick comment about thank you, Kyle, for the free speech. There's so many things that people say that I don't agree with, but I'm sure there's a lot of things I say they don't agree with, and that's what makes our country great, is our freedom of speech. Anyway, now let me get to this thing. I think Dr. Heyman's been doing a very good job. I've watched him. He is well thought out. He thinks about things. I want him or our representative, excuse me, to have the freedom to hear all of the public debate and comments. It's nice to have direction from the council that obviously plays into a great part of decision making for Mr. Heyman as well. However, I would say this, that when he would go into these GSA meetings, which I've watched quite a bit because I'm so concerned like everyone about our water problem out here, I don't want our representative, that being Mr. Heyman at this point in time, to have his hands already tied when he goes in there, that the decision, he's already tied. He can't change his opinion. It's already, created. And there's all these public comments subsequently coming into those current meetings. So I've watched him. He's listening to everything. And contrary to what maybe some people might say, I think he's doing a very good job representing the city as well as Peggy has in the past on that particular position. I thank everybody tonight for listening. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Okay. Is there other callers? All right, caller, please identify yourself and state your concern.
Hi, my name is Regina Troglin. I actually wanted to touch on two things that Lindsay was talking about. I watched your guys' last meeting where she spoke as well. When it comes to the votes, I am in full agreement with her that the representative on your board should be voting with the majority. Now, that isn't to say that the Brown Act may not come back and say that you can't do that anymore, but your representative represents your board, and that consistent opinion needs to follow through with any other boards. Now, in regards to public opinion, though, if that were the case that the GSA or GA actually wanted that, there would be actual voted on members in that committee, but there's not. You are all representing different parts. San Bernardino has their part, Kern County has theirs, but people themselves do not. And you need to keep that in mind. You guys represent people as a whole, and nobody listened. There was a huge consensus that this shouldn't pass, and it did anyways. Mr. Heyman's opinion was already made up going into that, and that was clear at that meeting. Mr. Gleason's as well. The representative from the Water District, his opinion was a little more malleable, but he stuck with what he was told to do of voting no, which was appreciated. He was the only one. San Bernardino didn't even take into account their own people. And unfortunately, we get impacted too, since I do live in San Bernardino. It's very disheartening to hear all of you say that your representative shouldn't vote the way that you guys can actually say that he should vote. It's not tying his hands. He represents you guys as well as the public who voted for him, and he did neither at that meeting. Unfortunately, it was very disappointing. I'm sure Dr. Heyman has done great things in the past. This just wasn't one of them, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, is there others on the line?
Nope. I'm going to state this right now. I emphatically am against voting to take Mr. Heyman off the position.
It's not on the agenda.
I know, but I mean, it was said that we should do it, and it was the last meeting. Someone called in and said the same thing, and if that comes on the agenda as a vote item, I will vote against it.
Okay. All right, Lindsay, you want to finish your questions up, please?
Yeah, I just want to state that I mean, all the callers at the last meeting were against it. With the COVID pandemic, the number of protests that we received in that very short time period, the way that the 218 was done, it was pretty clear to me that the people did not want this, and they weren't listened to. I listened to that whole GSA meeting. I think there was maybe like 2 callers out of all of them that called that weren't for this. And as I want to read a quote from Thomas Jefferson, "A nation ceases to be Republican only when the will of the majority ceases to be law." I think it's pretty clear that the citizens of this valley did not feel comfortable with moving forward at that time. We also know that there's going to be significant changes to this fee and how much is collected, and I just think that it was not done properly, and we're supposed to be representing the people, and the people were not represented in that instance. And so I think we need to make sure that because with them being closed out of the meetings, they're feeling even more ignored. They'll call in to the GSA, they get hung up on after their question they state their question, and sometimes it isn't answered. So it's just, with this being such a significant issue, and it's going to significantly impact some people. When you see Cerros Valley writing about shutting down, I had so many wives contacting me saying, "What am I going to do? My husband's out of a job." It's just a tough time in the world already, and moving forward with a fee of this magnitude was really concerning to a lot of people, and still is, with the referendum going on. So I just wanted to have this discussion because I thought it's important, and I also wanted to point out this wasn't how we agreed to be represented when we joined the GSA.
Scott?
Sure, I'd like to just make a couple comments here. Personally, I think this is just a backdoor attempt at circumventing the process. So, and I don't think that you speak for the majority of people in this town. I think you speak for a minority and special interest group of people. And so I'd like to read a comment here, because I hear about, how everybody's against it, but that's not the case. So this is a public comment letter that was sent in that was to be read at the last meeting. So it says, "Good afternoon, council and city staff. After witnessing the Groundwater Authority public hearing and vote last Friday, I would like to address tonight's agenda item 4 concerning the Ridgecrest City Council's continued participation in the GWA. First and foremost, I would like to commend Councilmember Heyman for his integrity and willingness to take decisive action in a difficult situation, despite the powerful and frankly inappropriate pressure from a vocal and misguided minority within the community to maintain the status quo. Likewise, Mayor Breeden has been a consistent and compassionate voice of reason that we are lucky to have on this critical issue facing the entire valley. With that being said, I am extremely concerned that any consideration is being given to the city withdrawing its voice and its vote from the GWA. No one likes the GWA. No one wants to have to pay more water. No one is rubbing their hands together in glee at the prospect of Searles Valley closing their doors. But our water is finite, and the GWA is only going away if the state of California takes it. And given the track record of the state, California's ability to successfully manage anything, I don't think anyone in their right mind wants this to happen either. A generation of irresponsible stewardship of the valley's limited resources has led us here. If nothing is changed, there won't be enough of these resources left to sustain another generation. To pull out of the GWA in a fit of childish petulance would be an unacceptable abdication of the responsibility of this city's elected officials to the residents they represent. Please stay involved, stay the course, and keep us all moving forward in a sustainable future. There is no question that the new fees are going to be painful, but we need the city to keep a seat at the table and help steer the crucial compromises that will ensure it remains a pain that can be endured for all of us. Thank you for the work that you do. Respectfully, Abby Atkinson. I think that pretty much covers the majority of what's taken place here and what you bring to the table. So I disagree with you on most of what you bring up. So I take it very serious what I do. I've never missed a meeting. I go to these meetings. I listen to every one of you speak. I make my decisions based on what I feel are the proper decisions for this city that I represent. And there's no mistaking that I represent the 28 plus or minus thousand people in the city of Ridgecrest. So I don't make my decisions based on an upcoming political environment that's coming about. There is an election coming up. I know that sways some people's views, and they don't want to be taken, back by, losing votes. That's fine. I can respect that. But I can guarantee I'm not making my decisions based on that. So I probably won't get into elongated comments like this in the future, but I'm taking it on the chin pretty regularly. I am perfectly okay with that. I understand the ramifications of my actions, and I stand 100% behind my actions.
I would like to also state the 218, wait a minute, before we go. Caller, please state your name and your comments. Caller, please state your name and your comments.
Hello, this is Eric Bruin, 208 Barbara. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Breeden and council members. I wanted to offer some brief comments to the council tonight in regards to the GA and Dr. Heyman's role as the council representative. I want to concur with his words and with the words of others that Dr. Heyman did exactly what an elected and duly appointed official should do. Any conversation regarding his removal from his role as representative to the GA is contrary to democratic government. He was appointed by his peers, attended meetings, listened to arguments, and made a decision. It's that simple. Yet, this is a new age of political rhetoric. We do not focus on the principles of good government. We seek headlines, sound bites, and emotional responses. We look to win elections with marches, protests, and talking about issues like water only from a cost perspective. We manipulate the message so individual viewpoints appear the loudest. Everyone is guilty of it, and no one in politics is without this stain. Thus, we find ourselves in a discussion about the GA tonight. And in this debate, the rhetoric has reached a fevered pitch. I have heard comments tonight about the removal of Dr. Heyman. But people elect leaders to solve problems. And delay is a strategy which has failed this community for far too long. I commend Dr. Heyman for moving us forward. But all of these arguments have been towards one objective, to continue to divide us. We all share in our desires, dreams, and hopes for our community. Yet we have allowed a handful of individuals to lead us down a path of division, which has crippled our forward progress in this city over the past 4 years. So I will conclude with my same original comment. Dr. Heyman did exactly as he was elected and appointed to do. He made a decision based on the information provided to him, and we should not allow people to call for his head when he doesn't do what his opposition demands of him. Moving this community forward will sometimes require tough decisions and bold leadership. We have kicked problems like water down the road for too long. In November, your vote will set the course for this community. We need leaders willing to make decisions based on the best interests of all and not simply the interests of the loudest. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hey, is there any other public comments on this item? Caller, please identify yourself and state your concern.
Good evening, guys. This is Kathy Brown calling in tonight. I hope I'm not boring anyone. But I've got to put in a good word for Dr. Heyman. He has done an outstanding job. Like I said, I've watched him. I've listened to what he said. He thinks things out. He's a good man. He's very intelligent. He asks good questions, and he takes his job very seriously. And I agree with the last caller. There's no reason to go after this man and get his head because there's an election coming up. It's kind of ridiculous. We need to unite the community. We need to move forward. And I want Dr. Heyman to stay in that position because I feel confident that he's going to move it forward. And Peggy did an outstanding job, as I said before, in that job. And, you know, we need steady, calm leaders. And Dr. Heyman has exhibited that with good decisions. And like you said, it's rough. This is a bad situation for everybody. Everybody's suffering now. But if we continue to unite and be calm, we will succeed and we will move forward. And, you know, this election stuff, you know, you can say, people can say what they want to, but there's no valid reason to take him out of that office. And I'm speaking not just for myself tonight, but for quite a few of my friends that, you know, they don't have time to call in. They're scared. And they think he's doing one heck of a job too. And it's not an easy job. You know, he's taken it very serious, but like he said, I just want to put a positive note on it tonight. And I promise not to call back in tonight because it's getting a little bit late. But thank you anyway for listening. I appreciate everybody on the council. You know, everyone matters. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are there other callers?
Can I suggest we move on? I think we've beaten this horse to death.
Okay. Caller, this is the last. We're going to give you another 5 seconds. I'm going to say one thing. Oh, there isn't any.
Hey, Peggy,
okay, callers, you're done then. Thank you.
Oh, man. Can I ask one more thing?
Please.
There was a discussion earlier about no longer having Don Zadiba, right, as a manager, that the water district was going to pull him. Has there been any prospects of a new as a new manager?
Yes, they're accepting applications. They extended the application acceptance for another few weeks. They do have, I believe, a couple of qualified individuals, and yes, I would vote to hire a manager because it is a significant amount of time.
Okay, thank you. Keith, can I ask you a question? I've heard someone, I can't remember the exact term Mr. Neal used. So I'm going to quote you, Mr. Neal, and I'll try to say it as close as I can. The falderall that 218, and it appeared that we were trying to pull the wool over people's eyes with 218. Could you explain what 218 is and how the vote happens? And without going into a huge amount of detail, that it is a legal path to take.
Sure.
Could you do that, please?
Okay. Yeah. Sure. So 218 was advanced by the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. They felt that it was closing a loophole on the way that certain fees and assessments were voted on. After Prop 13 went into effect, they felt that some public entities were using fees and assessments as a way of effectively increasing taxes without a vote of the public, which is what, by the way, what Prop 13 requires, is that general taxes require a vote of the public, approval from the public vote. So they divided the certain kinds of fees and assessments into certain categories. One of the categories is property-based water fees, and each of these categories, there's different kinds of levies. There's some called special assessments. There's standby charges, which are a form of special assessment. There's various kinds of fees. Each of these have a different procedure associated with them. This, again, is something that the Taxpayers Association advanced. When it comes to specifically water, solid waste, and sanitation fees, the procedure is called a majority protest procedure. And what that requires us to do is identify all of the properties that are going to be potentially affected by this property-related fee. We have to then give the properties information on specifically how the fee is going to impact them and give them the opportunity to submit a protest against that fee. If a majority of the people who are going to be affected submit a protest, then we can't adopt the fee. So in this particular case, a majority of the people affected by the fee decided not to submit a protest, and as a result, that allowed the GSA to go ahead and adopt the fee. I know that sometimes gets confused. People think that it's a vote of some kind, and that this procedure is lopsided because there's not a vote yes or vote no. All I can tell you is the procedure was adopted by the Howard Jarvis Association, and it's in the Constitution. We don't have a choice. We can't choose a different method. That's the method we have.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So I guess all I can tell you is a majority did not protest.
Okay, so referring that most of the people in the valley were against it, if they were, they did not vote. So did I say that backwards or I said
No,
it
you
right?
said it right.
Yeah. Okay, so we've all given you our direction. I'm very proud that you're representing us. I have to tell you, I don't want to go over what happened when you came on to take my position. I was very angry, very, very upset at the way it happened and how it happened. And I'm very proud because the right man to take things at that time came on, appointed by our council and directed by our council, and you've done a good job. I thank you.
I thank you, and I am proud to serve, and I will not lie about it. It is a tough position. So, but I'm proud to do the job, and I will do it to the best of my ability, and will continue to do that.
Thank you.
So I'm going to continue. Just one more thing. I know we want to move forward. Sorry, Mike. I know I'm the bane of your.
I got a wife at home starving that she just texted me to go get a dinner.
I'm the bane of your existence tonight. But one thing, I got multiple calls as well, Doc, him and people that were rather worked up and upset. And it did take me hours on the phone to cool that fervor, which is good and bad. I guess what I wanted to bring up is that maybe people, hopefully everybody's watching. I think there's a large group of people watching right now, which is good. I encourage everybody in the public to get a hold of anybody on this city council, get a hold of anybody on the GA, get a hold of somebody at the water district, and educate yourself further on this, because I think that the votes could have went one way or the other, depending on how you've chose to fill out that document. If you knew more, I'm not swaying this, I'm being objective. I'm saying knowing more about this, which takes an infinite amount of knowledge. I mean, there's people been in this valley for their whole lives who still don't know everything there is to know about the water topic in this valley. So I think the more we encourage people to educate themselves and understand exactly what's going on. I mean, Doc, you've been on there for a while, and you're, I'm sure, still learning as the days go on. We all are, right? Peggy, you've been doing it for a long time. It's a lot of knowledge that I know that most of the people out in the public don't always have. And I think it's important, not just for you, not just the GA, but all of us to keep pressing on the public and get that information out there. I'm just encouraging involvement is what I'm doing.
Agreed.
Go ahead, Doc.
That kind of, you touched a bit on the point, too, of like the education and getting involved. I think the PR, the public relations, the informational side of the GA could use improvement. And I think because I don't keep, the exact stats, but I can tell you that the majority of people, when I sit down and give them the line item detail of what the replenishment fee was, what the GA is doing, the vast majority go, wow, okay, I got it now. I'm for that. So, taking the point. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Doc.
Okay.
Okay, Mike, I'm done.
Okay, the next item, committee reports. Finance Committee.
Peggy, you didn't see me, but I
Have not met.
when you asked the attorney to give a break.
Have not met, Mayor. Thank you.
So, Scott, do you want to say anything?
No.
Okay, all right. All right, the next item is infrastructure.
We meet next Thursday.
Economic development.
We did meet. I don't know if you want to go ahead, Lindsay, but I could. Oh, if maybe you want to give a report, Melissa, on the economic committee. Well, just so you could talk completely about the community block grant and the status of things.
So at the Economic Development Committee, good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. At the Economic Development Committee, we actually went over the community development block grant. We will be receiving funds from the county, which we're basically getting it from the federal government through the county, and it will touch upon our local businesses, specifically our local restaurants, and it'll help with outdoor conversion. And so more specifically, we are going to be purchasing outdoor equipment so that with everything that's going on with COVID, that our local restaurants are able to continue with their services outdoors and allowing people to dine outside.
With grant money, right?
Yes, with grant money. With COVID grant money.
When you said we are going to purchase, I wanted to.
Oh, well, so the city will be managing the actual program, and they'll be, the local business owners will be turning in applications to us, and then we will be filtering in. So
And we will actually purchase the equipment for them,
Yes.
but using grant funds.
Yes.
That way we make sure that they're spent appropriately.
Right. This matter will be coming before City Council for approval. So
In
this-
October,
I public noticed it for October 7th. If you will indulge me, I'd like to say one thing regarding the CDBG. It is coming forward as a public hearing. This is not a set in stone project. We have to accept public comment. We have to consider all options, and then you have to give guidance to us on how to submit it to the Board of Supervisors. This is our recommendation, the staff's recommendation on how to potentially use the funds. But the public hearing is going to be to hear options and for you to decide. Just wanted to point that out for clarity.
and then it still has to get approved by the Board of Supervisors
Correct.
as well before so it's not a set in stone thing for sure
Correct.
on multiple levels. Yeah.
Yes.
Melissa, did you have more?
That was about the extent of the meeting, and we had some staff updates, but other than that, that was
Anything
the
else?
majority.
Okay.
Quick question. So did I hear you correct that it's geared toward the restaurants and outdoor
Yes.
dining? And
Yes, that's correct.
I think it's a really good thing to go. I managed to get to 3 of the outdoor dining restaurants, Lugo's and Alley's and Casa Corona, and it's been very pleasant. It's a nice atmosphere. I mean, I think they're doing a wonderful job under the circumstances, and anything we can do to help promote that and bring that to a higher level, I think is a very good, positive thing to be doing for the community. So I'm with
As
you.
staff, we decided that local restaurants would be a good fit for this grant due to the fact that they are one of the hardest hit industries during COVID, and so we don't want to see any more restaurants have to close because they're not allowing any more patrons in. So,
Have you, because I just saw someone posted that China Express just announced that they are going to be basically closing off their dining restaurant and renting that out and become carry out only. Have you reached out to them? I don't remember us talking about.
I'm still going down the list and reaching out and seeing
Okay.
exactly what certain restaurants will need in terms of equipment and how much real infrastructure that they need to create a patio scenario. So,
great.
Ron, is it appropriate to ask questions about restaurants and the patio scenario right now, or should we save that for another conversation?
You can ask it now if you wish.
So, and this is where I'll start to get a little bit out of my depth here, so hopefully you'll help me out. As it stands for a restaurant, the amount of the capacity for people within that restaurant, do the patios add to that capacity? And if some of these restaurants that have been forced to move outdoor, are they going to have to change anything inside that building because now it's a different capacity? So I know I'm giving very general terms here, but it's a concern that was raised to me by somebody who owns a restaurant.
Yeah, I think what you're referring to is do they have sufficient amount of parking for the people inside the restaurant that doesn't affect the local neighborhood and businesses?
Bathrooms too, I think were
and bathrooms too. I don't think that would be the effect for parking or even on the inside because they're moving everybody outside. I think the only restaurant that may have more seating outside than they do inside, I think, is Casa, but it's fairly close. And they do have sufficient amount of parking to be able to address that. And the other issue might be the fire code, but I think that somewhat negates it because they're outside. So from what I've seen from viewing the restaurants, I don't see any issues, and I know that the health department has come around to, approve most of their outdoor dining as well.
Thanks, Ron. I appreciate it.
One of the restaurant bars spoke to me not too long ago, and they were very pleased with the way things are going because it's working out well for them. Their concern is, what do they do when it snows? And I said, well, we don't get snow that often, but one of the things that we could purchase was a heater.
Yeah.
And we don't know what's going to change. We may go into the red and further on up and not stay in purple shortly too, although they're saying it's probably going to be 2021 before we can do that.
Yeah, if you look at the tiering, we're probably a couple weeks out from Tier 2, which means the restaurants will be able to have 25% occupancy on the inside. So, you are looking at the restaurants being able to probably have a larger capacity, which may not be a bad thing with the influx of the workers coming in for the work on the base here starting within the next 6 months. So you might see a thing where we might be at 75% capacity but still have the outdoor dining to be able to accommodate those additional customers that are going to be here working.
That's
so
what they were doing, cheering us on. So
yeah, there may be some very good side benefits to the restaurants in regards to this.
Yeah.
And so, Melissa, are you still encouraging the public to reach out to you now, or would you rather wait for another public hearing? Or
I'm available to take any public comment, any input, because again, this will go to a public hearing, and none of the funds are set. The program isn't completely set either, so it again is just an idea that staff recommends. So I'm very much open to hearing any and all public comment.
No, thank you.
The grant does have guidelines, and this does fit within the guidelines fairly well.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Did you have anything else?
The RACVB
Okay.
committee report.
Are you done with the because Parks and Rec are next, but go ahead and do RCVB and we'll go Parks and Rec after
Okay,
that.
go for it. So we met this morning, and I've just got a couple updates from that meeting. I wanted to report that we are up in occupancy, 4.6% from June. We're currently at this month 41.1%. So we're hoping that with the earthquake recovery efforts and the amount of people that will be coming in, that might help occupancy. We are one of the highest in the state, and even on the West Coast. So I think that we're headed in the right direction in terms of that. In relation to that, we have had a few productions within the Ridgecrest area, and two of them were in August, and they featured Fossil Falls, the Pinnacles, and the dunes, and areas to that nature. And there were a few productions at the Inyokern Airport as well. So we also have a few more looking to pull permits to film. So we're looking forward to having the film industry back here and helping out our hotels. I have also given everybody a Location 2020 publication, and we were featured in the middle fold, and we also have our film commission featured, and their information is also in there. And this is a really great publication because this targets a lot of film professionals, and this is one of the assets that they use to determine where that they'd like to film. So again, we're focusing a lot on filming and marketing to the filming, because they also are required to have certain COVID guidelines, and so it is very much heeded too. I have another update on the California Welcome Center. The timeline is looking to be spring, summer of 2020 for opening. Construction will start soon in the area, and again, it's the old Goodwill building. The roof has been repaired, and so they're looking to start the project. They also wanted me to emphasize the fact that a lot of the marketing efforts from now until opening will one way or another incorporate the Welcome Center. It is a great asset for our community to have a designation from California Welcome Center. There are only a set number, which is different than regular visitor center, and we have a distinction from the state. So that is definitely an honor. And then my last couple updates are that the website is fully updated, and so there were a few concerns there, but we have addressed them, and now everything is up to date. The RCVB also would like to encourage council to look at our filming quarterly newsletter, and that's sent out through email. And if anybody is interested, I can give you that information. And we also have the new visitors guide available for download on the website as well in October. So that is the end of my report. Thank you so much.
I'm interested in that newsletter.
Okay, I got this book and I opened it up and said sign here, but it doesn't show where to sign.
Okay, let's go back to, unless there was any questions of Melissa. Okay, let's go back to Parks, Rec, and Quality of Life.
Yes, so I would just encourage, if you can, go onto the City of Ridgecrest Parks and Recreation Department Facebook page. They are asking for comments on what recreation features you would like to see at a community pool facility. This information is helpful to show a lot of community engagement and comments on that because we are going after a competitive grant. So it's really good if we can get lots of comments on that of things you would like to see, even if you scroll down and see that what you want is already listed, still go ahead and comment saying, yes, I agree, I want a shade structure, because it's good to show lots of community engagement since it's a competitive grant. And then we will be having our meeting on the first Tuesday of October. So that agenda will be getting posted with the call-in information if we're not open still at that time. So, but please be looking out for participating in that because it is a competitive grant.
Okay. All right, then the next item is other committees, boards, and commissions.
Yeah, I have KernCog tomorrow. I'm still Zooming in rather than going over there. So, nothing exciting.
Okay. Anybody else?
Just the League of California Cities. Got that vote coming up, so
Okay.
looking for public participation.
All right. Thank
Input.
you. City managers report.
Yes, ma'am, just a couple items. Council should have received an email from Mr. Lauer today regarding a future ribbon cutting for Down Street. We should be scheduling that here in the next day or so. It looks like the road will be open in a week and a half. So we're also looking to schedule the ribbon cutting for the refurbishment of the gazebo as well as a new bathroom over at the park, and I have Marissa and Jason setting that date also. So there are a couple of things coming up here in the near future.
Good. Thank you. All right. Mayor and council comments. Let's start down this way.
Oh, I just wanted to mention, we had, I've seen some questions online about Halloween and what the city is going to allow or not allow on that. So, and we got some emails about it. So if we could make sure we say or don't regulate that or, yeah. Yes, protest while gathering candy. But yeah, so yes, so that's just, I just wanted to clarify that.
I think a lot of churches do that trunk or treat now.
But they
They've
technically
all canceled.
They technically would not be allowed to do that
Well, they're
under the
allowing
current.
drive-in church. Why can't you just drive in and throw out your stuff?
Yeah. So, but anyways, yes. Yeah, so just so that people kind of get the hint of what our comments were there.
Okay. Anybody else?
I hope the Grinch does not steal Christmas.
Oh.
You hope what?
The COVID Grinch.
I hope the Grinch does not steal Christmas.
Well, I'd already talked to Rick about this. I am having knee surgery on the 20th of October. We have a meeting on the 21st. I had her, she's going to post that I will call in from home, depending on how drugged up I am. So.
Okay. We're not bragging that you're drugged up. You're taking prescription medicine. Okay. The only comment I'd like to make is begging our people to support our local businesses. I have talked to so many. I hear them through the chamber. I hear them coming in. No one is in great shape. And please, people, shop local. If you see something you want and they don't have it, they'll get it for you. I've had one business, I put an ad in the swap sheet this week saying, please support business. And I said, we'll meet prices. And one of them said, do you know that some of the stores down below are selling them for less than I can buy them? But please try to come in, even if you can't, you're looking for a vase that's $100 and they're selling it for $110, spend the extra $10. It's worth it because those monies come back and they benefit locally, and all these businesses have been there to support you when you ask for help for your teams and support for all your events. Dollars and dollars and dollars went out. Please support local. And I'm asking that it's important that we recognize Amazon is great. I mean, people use it, but Amazon contributes nothing to this community, and your businesses do. So please shop local. Try to do that, and it will pay in the long run because we are all in this together, and that's part of being a community. Share, talk, work together, spend your dollars locally as much as you can. So I thank you. Okay, I see nothing else, so I will adjourn. Thank you all.